A good afternoon and a warm welcome to Tembe Elephant Park here on Live at the Watering Hole, Wild Earth, and we are having a look at two young elephant bulls, just busy going about their midday routine about water. There's a few woolly neck stalks off to the one side, and judging from the bare patches around this still very wet area or suppression here at Tembe, it seems like it's been very, very busy here lately, and you can see the dry season effects taking up in at this point of the year. Now, I'm Jaapie Potgieter, and I'm going to be your host this afternoon, and like always, I am extremely excited to see who we get coming down this afternoon, coming to come and have a drink at the water, coming to show us some water-related behavior, some antics, some funny interactions, if it's for the baboons. And talking about funny interactions, just want to remind our viewers that it's live and interactive. You can see there at the bottom left of the screen all our social media and communication platforms. You're welcome to send through questions, comments. If there's anything you would like to chat about, anything you wanted to mention, or just to say hi, we would appreciate that. And as always, questions is the way I learn. Now, this is quite interesting. We've noticed this elephant has had a drink, and then from there he's moved to a shady spot under that big tree, which I'm still not 100% sure what it is, but it looks like it might either be a jackalberry or African ebony, as it's also known, or a weeping boerbean, or a scotia as many people call it, which is its scientific name. And that is one thing that you would often see with elephants. If they come down during the middle of the day, it is, for the bulls, it seems like it's quite a relaxing time. They come, they check out the watering hole, they see who's been there, they have their drink, and then they go to a spot to sand themselves. Depending on how hot it is or the weather, you might find that sometimes they actively use mud to cover themselves first. Sometimes they just use dust. Now, this part of the world here in Tembe, which is in the far northern ends of the KwaZulu-Natal province in eastern South Africa, very close to the border with Mozambique, and low-lying area. Once you move down from the Lebombo Mountains, it's kind of like this flat land all the way through with lots of sand, ancient sand dunes, ancient sand deposits, and all the way to the coastal plain. So very, very low, very hot in summertime, very humid as well, very tropical, even in winter time. And also it's got very high amount of UV rays, or the UV factor is quite intense in this part of South Africa. In fact, out of curiosity, I think I might look to see if I can find on what it might be there today. But you can see some impala there in the background. And the woolly neck stalks, I think there is an Egyptian goose as well. See, all these animals are showing signs that they are very relaxed. They're not too bothered. I can see there's a bit of a breeze going, like always. I always like to have a look at the general weather conditions that prevails in an area. It looks like it's slightly overcast, and that is usually weather that do tend to have a calming effect, at least from the outside, over animals. And I like to, people might not always realize it, but the weather has got a huge impact on the game viewing and how we view game, what we see on any given day. And for the safari season in South Africa, now is the season. Generally anything from end of March, April onwards to about October, but I'd say the high seasons would probably be May to September. Jackie, our first question from the afternoon is from Jackie, or from the morning. Actually, we're still in the morning. Look at me jumping ahead already. What do the storks eat, and do they eat fish? Generally, Jackie, oh, I see now it's a hadida that's in between them, a hadida ibis, not a stork, not a Egyptian goose, as I said earlier. That's quite nice to see. Also a regular visitor around the edges of pans and water bodies. But to get back to Jackie's question, Jackie, generally speaking, a stork would eat anything. Storks are, you have some storks that prefer certain food types, but generally speaking, with a stork, they would go after whatever is available in their immediate area. Now, the woolly-necked stork do like to wade in the water, and we often do find them in little groups like this, or pairs. You can see it looks like 4, so probably 2 pairs. And they will go after whatever they can catch on the water's edge, inside, on golf courses, often cultivated fields. I've seen them in various different areas. Just have a look. There's a very, very nice view of these birds. You can see they're all busy preening and busy combing through their feathers. Looks, this one here on the left, the woolly-necked stork, is going after the feathers around the scruff of the neck. Interesting to see that we can also see that iridescent shine on the shoulders of the hadida's feathers. Both of these birds have a bit of iridescence in their feathers, and although they might look a little bit dull from a distance, if you look up close, then you might see that they've got some quite beautiful, brilliant colors. But yeah, what an interesting bird. What interesting birds in general. You can see usually when it's hot like this, it is always good for them just to have a bit of time out in the sun. This helps with maintaining the feathers, not just feathering it out, so to speak, and making it look neat. They also actively burn parasites. They treat their feathers that way, especially these birds spending time in moist areas. They tend to do a little bit of feather treatment this way. And you can see there's not much bothering these birds. Look at that one hadida on the right, standing with his one leg up, just balancing on the other one, trying to get to that hard to reach place at the back. And birds spend a lot of time on this. We don't always think about it, but I mean, flying takes a lot of effort. Feathers wear down. It's a unique adaptation for birds, of course, and it serves various functions. And also, with these two birds, enables them to fly. So it needs maintenance. It's an active part of the body that's used as a tool. And just look at them going about their business there. You can see they almost have a method. Like they start around the neck and the chest, and they go through the feathers all the way down the back, and then kind of back towards the neck or scruff area. But very, very interesting birds, both of these two, long bills. It also speaks about their particular adaptations. But yeah, so actually I saw that Jackie's question had a second part to it. Do the storks, the woolly neck storks, eat fish? Yes, Jackie, indeed they do. They do actually. They'll grab whatever little fish they can. You can see that very narrow gleaming bill is very much designed to grab a hold of something quick and slippery, like frogs and fish on the water's edge, usually smaller fish, although I wouldn't put it past them to grab whatever they can. We got another question from John. What would cause a bird to lose feathers? Oh, John, that's a good question, and it's not a straightforward answer. There could be various factors that could affect a bird's feathers. Diet, definitely. Its physical state, disease, and then also if they go through a molt. Birds go through a molt. Bigger birds tend to go through their molts over a more regular basis, but it's like almost like a constant thing, and they replace feathers that way. Although it happens in a gradual procession, so they won't lose everything at one point and then have them regrow. Well, some birds do, but it also depends on the species. But they replace them gradually over time, so that those feathers that are worn are replaced by brand new feathers that are in a good condition. And of course they also take care of them. Replacing feathers obviously would take energy, lots of energy. If the bird had to replace everything at once, it would put the bird at risk as well. Yeah, so it is quite an interesting thing, and there are various reasons for birds to replace and lose feathers. I know birds in captivity, sometimes things like stress, disease. Have a look at how close that impala is getting to this hardy-da. That's amazing. I find that amazing. Animals and birds, all species, they kind of pick up on each other so quickly and on their behavior. You can see it looks like it's nice and warm here at Tembe Elephant Park this morning, but yeah, I don't think we as people will be able to get to any hardy-da that close. They're generally speaking quite alert birds, so is the storks. Both of these birds have excellent eyesight. Look at that impala go. A brief stop to lick a knee. Looks like a young ram. He's grooming the front leg all the way down. A grooming session for antelopes and birds alike this morning. Sarah is asking, is there any predators that would go after storks? Sarah, indeed. The first one that pops up to my head now is crocodile. I have been fortunate to witness crocodiles take storks every now and again. Although it's not a common occurrence, it does happen. Generally speaking, they'll leave them alone, but the crocodile is a opportunistic critter, and therefore if a stork wades too close without paying attention, then it would certainly go after it. Other than that, whatever else could catch it. I've seen leopard go after both storks and a hardy-da. Birds of prey, of course, large birds of prey, if there's a chance they would go after storks, especially nesting storks. That might be visible from afar. Yeah, the cats. any other larger predator, any predator really would be opportunistic, and if a opportunity presents itself where the bird is for some reason unaware and or not capable of taking care of itself or flying, then potentially that would make it prey. Humans, of course. But yeah, I do think generally speaking storks are quite alert. They know what they're dealing with. They are around the edges of water bodies in Africa, so they are used to encountering predators, which is also another reason for their excellent eyesight. But just have a look at these guys grooming. Look like they're wearing neat suits. The woolly-necked stork in particular, quite a bit of contrast with its woolly neck, as the name suggests. And it's interesting to, oh, there we go, there's a look up in the sky. You can see the head's thrown at a slight angle, looking straight up. Now that is something, that glance, as birds on the ground often do, is not just to check out, like they do check out this, look at the movements of other large birds flying over. Vultures often, other large birds of prey obviously catch their eye, and that is something that's important, because while they be grooming like this, it obviously also takes their concentration off the air. From where there might be a potentially predator coming. So if they're not alert, and if they don't check the sky out every now and again, they could be taken by surprise, that's for sure. But yeah, now we can see a bit of the iridescence on both of these birds' bodies. And this stork looks extremely well prepped and groomed at the current stage. Yeah. Even that hardydah. It's nice to see the hardydahs out on the reserves compared to some of the ones you see in the city. Like over the last little while, spending time at home, I tend to see quite a bit of hardydah ibises in the city of Johannesburg, and it is always interesting to compare their rough look and rough feathers of some of them, not all of them, compared to those out on reserves. It's a tough life in the city for some of these. But that was a great start to this afternoon with a bit of birding, always fun. I think we're going to leave this hardydah and stork while they go about their grooming business, and we're going to head over to Tortillas Pan, where we have a Grant's gazelle. It looks like two quite alert Grant's gazelles. Look at that view. There we go, some of those in the back casually feeding. You can see there's a nice Very, very nice set of horns on that animal. And I can see it looks hot there. It looks dry here currently. You can see the color of the grass there. The tails going vigorously as it often does on hot days. Lots of little biting insects. Interesting to see them feeding in between the rocks here. You can see the one here on the water's edge. It still looks like there's a bit of green grass closer to the water, so definitely a good opportunity for these antelope to come and have a bit of a feed. And you can see that what we're witnessing is the safety in numbers. Not necessarily looking out for each other, but more so for their own back end of a potential predator. But being in a herd, there will always be one or two lifting their heads at any given point, looking in a different direction. They're all facing differently. But you can see they're definitely going after food around the edges of the pan here, edges of the shrubs in the background. Now these shrubs are usually filled with little birds as well, and lots of little droppings come down there. It holds moisture quite well sometimes, and a bit of a shade, so you have all the good grass and food growing nearby on the edges, the shady edges of shrubs. But yeah, Grant's gazelle, what an interesting animal. It's an animal I'm not particularly familiar with, so I always enjoy watching them. You do have a lot of similarities with some of the gazelles we see. Oh, there's a big bird of prey, it seems like, up on the tree there in the back. Not sure exactly what that is. It's quite far away. It would be very difficult to give an ID for that. But we got talking about bird of prey. Oh, there we go. There are some blacksmith lapwings. Also a common bird around watering holes throughout eastern and southern Africa. But we got a question from James Hotham about birds of prey. James is saying birds of prey seem to specialize on a particular animal, but could or would they target other birds of prey that eat them? That is a very good question, James. And I'm not sure if this might answer your question, but I do. If I think about birds of prey in competition and targets, I know that in Botswana, I know a few people that's actually seen it, where a bird of prey, an owl, actually grabbed a fish eagle and ate it. I believe it's also recorded on one of the bird apps in South Africa. And we know from videos taken at nests with hidden cameras at night time, we do know that owls, the rose eagle owl, do tend to harass eagles during their nighttime rest up on the nest, because eagles are diurnal and owls obviously nocturnal. Oof, now that looks like a very big bird there. I cannot, from this angle, I would not attempt a reliable identification. I can, however, say that it looks like an eagle of some type. I saw a very bright yellow bill reflecting the light. You can see the little birds going crazy there nearby, probably aware of this bird's presence. And what a good spot to sit, near the water, excellent view of the larger area. And this eagle certainly knows where to perch, and it's obviously making its presence blatantly obvious. But it's also probably checking out the water to take a chance to come down and drink. So yeah, so with James's question, I hope that answers it, James. Oh, there is a spoonbill, African spoonbill in the water. They've got a very interesting way of feeding. Look how quickly this bird moves its beak and neck in the water. That is quite something to watch. And you can see they take wading to a whole new level. And of course that bill that they have is very sensitive to anything that might be moving. Here we go. It's quite busy with birds here. There's also something fluttering in the background. I'm not 100% sure what it is. It might have looked like a dove of some kind. We got another question from Lily. Lily's asking, do you think there's better vegetation growing in between the rocks than other places? Lily, potentially at some points, yes. Rocks often they hold moisture, like early morning moisture from rains. They might hold that moisture for slightly longer. They also provide a little bit of shade and protection. And near the water's edge, especially animals moving across, lots of movement from animals and mud getting trampled further away from the water by the animals' hooves, you tend to find that those rockier places often provides like a perfect little sheltering spot for some grasses, and that often provides them the chance to grow between the rocks. They've got a good anchorage there. They don't get pulled out as easily, so you have a little bit of tougher grasses, but ones that do tend to be sought after, some species. And you'll have animals picking up on some of that tufts of grasses between the rocks. Otherwise also other little plants, weeds, things that's often quite nutritional and tend to be green when other things are not. But just look at this spoonbill. What a unique bird. What a strange looking bird. You can see it's like not going into the middle of the water, like more around the edges, but he almost sticks his whole face under the water where he goes. He's clearly not looking for food using his eyes. Katie is asking, does the spoon shape have a benefit? Indeed it does, Katie. It definitely does. It's got a nice broad spoon-shaped front end, which is generally to provide it with better grip, larger surface area, and hence a higher chance of grabbing something small moving between. Because as the bird's moving like that in the water, of course it's disturbing whatever's below, whether that might be tadpoles, frogs, little fish, water insects. Something's drawn its attention. It's interesting how there's these like deeper patches near the water's edge here as it approaches the edge of the pan. Ooh, what is that in the background? Seems like there's quite a lot going on, and this dull grass further away from the pan, it's animals hide quite well, like those France gazelles. There we go. There's 2 little bites for the spoonbill, 3 little bites. This bird must be gaining quite a bit of food during the course of its morning. Of course, birds do have very high metabolisms. Birds, especially birds that fly, they exert massive amounts of energy. You can see in the background looks like some doves jumping around. I thought I saw one with a long tail. That looked to me like an amakwa dove, but not too sure. Not too sure, to be honest. Well, this has been an incredible watch to see the spoonbill feed and all the other birds around. Look at that beautiful spreading valley there in the background. But from Tortilla's camp, good to check in. I think let's head over to Tau, where I heard we have some waterbuck. And indeed we do. Waterbuck and Egyptian geese. Another 2 regular visitors near the water's edge throughout Africa, and especially in South Africa. Now Tau is situated in the drier western regions of South Africa's northern province, known as Limpopo, and water bodies like this provide a vital lifeline during the drier season. Now you can see everything is waiting. It looks like a little moorhen in the front, some Egyptian geese going about, the waterbucks feeding on whatever grasses or plants is growing in the water there. Waterbuck.
Can you hear that sound? The way it grows, the way it calls you to come alive. Can you feel the rhythm? The way it beats with the land? Do you feel alive again? Or maybe you never left. You don't just visit the wild, you return to it. Alright then, let me show you what you're missing. Our archive allows you to delve into the past, be it yesterday or many years ago. You can visit characters who've left us.
Doesn't ever get old.
This is, of course, the Little Prince, Hosanna, guides who've moved on to other things.
Tingana's walking right in front of my vehicle.
These guys are the sausage tree pride.
Classic stories and wonderful moments. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Hi there, my name is Kerry Dupree, wildlife presenter and guide.
What I love the most about guiding is being able to share my love for wildlife and nature with my guests. Very exciting to find those cheetah boys on a kill. Being passionate about your job makes the world of a difference because your guide definitely sets the tone of every adventure.
Now let's see. Here we go. He is just keeping an eye on those waterbuck moving out. Well, at least I thought so. It might also not be the case. Some guinea fowl in the back. It's very busy here. What a good spot. So let's see. James Hotham's got another question. Lots of cameras, and are the animals aware that they are being watched? And could territorial animals dislike them and attack or destroy them? James, that's a very interesting question, and once again, not a question with a straightforward answer. Look, I don't believe that these animals currently are aware that they're being watched. Even if they were, they don't give any indication that it's bothering them at all. It depends on an area. Like, I think this being so close to a lodge, obviously the presence of people is known, so whatever comes with that would not be too much of a bother to them. They have seemed to adapt it to that. In some cases, yes, indeed, animals would pick up on the cameras. Baboons seem to be quite particular in coming to investigate, but you also find some of the other animals do investigate cameras sometimes. Elephant, occasionally, predators, and in some cases, I wouldn't say it's because of territoriality, but you do find that some animals do tend to destroy cameras. In the past, I've had with camera traps where some of the younger elephant bulls tend to, when they find a camera trap, if it's not hidden well enough or it's somewhere out in the open, then elephant bulls tend to, especially the younger ones, tend to go and play around with them, sometimes destroying them in the event. That's interesting. That waterbuck bull just kind of chased that one female over to this side. Now let's see, the other female in the back is picking up her pace slightly. Now maybe he might be advancing from a distance. There. He clearly looks like this patch belongs to him. And whatever females come through here might be his. Or maybe it's just a nice little spot to lay down. Maybe he doesn't want the close company. From there he's got a great view. He's probably got the wind coming from behind him to smell whatever is approaching from the bushes into the opening. And then of course he's got a view at the water. But yeah, to get back to James's question, I've noticed that hyenas tend to destroy cameras. Well, at least I've seen with camera traps. With the cameras for the Africam cameras, generally they tend to do quite well. They tend to be quite well hidden, and even when they do get noticed, they don't tend to draw too much unwanted attention from the animal side. But I think that's more of an investigative or curious curiosity that gets that triggers animals to approach and test cameras. I mean, like a hyena, for instance, the way they investigate things and try to form a better understanding of it is by using their jaws. They don't have hands, fingers, like we do, so they do have their paws, but they tend to hold it down and chew things. Their sense of taste and sense of smell is what provides them with their definitive conclusions. And yes, in that case, some cameras do tend to suffer the brunt of animals' curiosity. We got a question from Lawrence Dube. Do crocodiles prey on waterbucks? Yes, they do, Lawrence. Look, I mean, it depends on the size of the crocodile. It depends on the situation with the waterbuck. Is it a large waterbuck, a young one? Of course, younger creatures are always more at risk, but big crocodiles will go after anything, really. So, except maybe adult elephants, even though there's been recorded cases of them attacking, whether it was deliberate or by accident or some other reason why, not too sure. In the background I see something running right on the edge, not sure what it was. Maybe guinea fowl, maybe mongoose. But yes, crocodiles do eat waterbuck. If they've given the chance, they would. I know that there are some crocodiles here at Tau, but these crocs are not particularly large, and these waterbuck are quite aware of their presence generally, so I don't think the crocs would really try and attempt going after these waterbuck. At least these crocs here at Tau, not really. But then again, you would never put it past them. A crocodile is a crocodile and an opportunist at best. Like any predator, really. Jackie is asking, considering that they are eating from the water, do they also get hydrated from it? Yes, indeed they do, Jackie. I'm assuming you're talking about the waterbuck, but yes, indeed they do. Waterbuck tend to get quite a lot of moisture from the food that they eat near the water's edge. Some antelope, especially some smaller antelopes, not waterbuck, but from other areas, they tend to get most of their moisture from the food they eat. So yes, the animals do indeed get moisture from the food that they eat. Look at that big waterbuck bull just relaxing. What is that? There's a kudu coming in the background. Amazing. And zebra, always one of our favorites. And there's a crocodile out on the bank right in front of the zebra. Let's have a look. Now, it's difficult to judge from here. Judging from the fact that those zebras are behind the crocodile, and in comparison to them, I'd say that is a average crocodile. Not huge, and likely not a sizable specimen that would attempt to go after very large prey. But having said that, of course, depending on any situation, it's not impossible. I just think, from judging from this, that crocodile doesn't look too big, but then again, it's also very difficult to actually judge the size of a crocodile if it's laying down like that. But these zebras seem to be a little bit more preoccupied with each other's movements. Look at that grumpy zebra there. She does look like she might be pregnant as well. When that is the case, you find that some female zebras tend to be a little bit more how can I put this, attentive about their personal space. Here comes the big kudu bull. Let's see. This should be interesting. He looks quite thirsty. He's obviously had enough time to scope the area out while walking over from across the clearing. But it would be interesting to see what he does. Is he going to come to where the zebras are drinking, or is he going to move a little bit along and find another clear spot? That spot where they are looks quite deep, that channel. Maybe that's why the crocodile is there, but they can all see him out on the bank. There we go. In good old-fashioned kudu style, he's walking over to his own drinking spot. And I see some elephants in the back there. Now this is one thing I like about Tao. Like, the more you look, the more you see. There's always quite a lot of activity around this watering hole, but it is such an amazing watering hole. It's got this like large open space between the water and the nearby vegetation, which is perfect for plains game species like zebra, and sometimes wildebeest. And then in the background you have something else. Kudu, elephant. Where is this kudu going? He's going to the water's edge. Let's see. Look at him carefully checking the area out. Now, is he going to walk up onto this dam wall and have a drink? It must be quite deep down there. There you can see the elephants in the back just flapping their ears, helping their bodies stay cool within this warm, sunny environment. But yeah, and let's see, Sandra. Do waterbuck have any particular alarm behaviors when they spot a predator? Yes, indeed they do, Sandra, they do. Waterbuck do alarm. I'm rather not gonna attempt to do that. But generally speaking, other than that, body posture is also something that a lot of animals pick up on. Waterbuck they tend to be quite nervous in certain areas, especially in denser areas, so approaching the water they are quite alert. But yes, they do have, most animals have, they have a particular, look at this zebra. It looks like two males. Lots of energy in that group. And there we go, the crocodile and the Egyptian goose. You can see lots of elephant dung, some green patches of grass, but most of the other areas have dried out. Look at that beautiful waterbuck pool there. Definitely the boss of this domain. And another question from James. James is saying, we know crocodiles will get what they can when animals cross rivers, etc., but would a hippo grab a zebra or another animal? James, that's also not a straightforward answer. Generally speaking, the answer would be no. Hippos tend to be grazers exclusively. They feed on grass. But then again, they have also been known to bite or even attack other animals. Exactly why that happens, not too sure. I guess it would depend on the situation. Hippos tend to be quite aggressive. They especially male hippos, they do have quite high testosterone levels, especially certain times of the year when pressure mounts in watering holes. They tend to become quite protective of the area, so you do find sometimes animals that get chased into the water or that's forced to move through the water do become a target for certain hippos. Hippos have also been known to nibble on dead things. Once again, that might be, regardless of whether they do get any nutrition out of it or not, I think it's also just a curiosity thing. And I think we've also, like recent studies have shown, that more and more animals do have some form of understanding or a particular emotional response to death. So maybe that might be a way of kind of investigating dead animals. But yeah, generally speaking, hippos won't go and grab something, but then again, if it comes too close to the pod, whether it gets triggered from a protective response or whatever other reason, hippos could potentially grab something or bite at something. And of course, it's a very large animal, so that could have some serious implications to whatever species it might go after. But definitely not as a predation attempt, that's for sure. And I saw there's some elephants moving there on the back, on the hills there. Always interesting to see elephants up on the hills. And one wouldn't expect elephants up on the hills, but elephants get around. They are not nearly as what's the word? They're not nearly as slow and odd in their movements as one might think that would be associated with their size. They actually get around up and down very high hills. In some areas where I've worked, it's quite mountainous. I've noticed elephants up on the mountains using little trails going up and down. Often the game trails up over the mountains get created by elephants. Oof, look at this, it almost looks like a completely different area. I can't even believe that this is Tau. You can see the contrast here between the water lilies and the water and the greener waterlogged grasses growing inside the water, which of course the waterbuck is capitalizing on, or some of them chewing the cud and resting out in the sun. And then we have the zebra, which just come down for their drink. Lots of zebra. I'm sure there's quite a few herds that come and drink here. Just have a look. These waterbuck are in quite deep. It looks like they're feeding on the water lilies actually, more so than the grasses. Now I know that water lilies, especially their stems that span beneath the water's surface, they are quite nutritional and they tend to get picked up on by animals that can get them. I've seen sometimes what happens is I've seen elephants drag them out of the water occasionally. Even they will try and feed off them, and then I've noticed other animals that's nearby might come down and eat some of them. Two young zebra in that group. Looks like they've had their drink. I'm curious to see if they're gonna stay around here. Doesn't look like there's too much food around for them, so I reckon that they might move back to whichever part they come from to eat. We got a question from Sandra. The waterbucks spend a lot of time in the water. Is it good for their fur or skin? Sandra, in short, waterbuck is much more adapted to that kind of lifestyle, like wading into the water. Their fur is covered with almost like a waterproof coating in a sense, or oil, and that does provide them some form of protection and the ability to spend longer times within the water compared to animals with shorter coats made for being out on the plains. I guess it would be good in terms of hydration. I guess they probably wouldn't be able to stay in the water all the time. But yes, certainly it doesn't do them any harm necessarily. They adapted to it. Also, hence the name waterbuck. They're not just always found near water, but they do tend to wade into water, as we're clearly seeing here. Aha! This was a beautiful check-in here, Tal, but I heard we have some buffalo. So we're going to head over to another watering hole to see what's happening there. At Mahalimzuri and the Masai Mara, we have some buffalo bulls. Now these guys are some of my favorite. Notorious for various reasons. And just to have a look. If I didn't know any better, I would say that they are carefully checking the area out before approaching the water. And while they're waiting, the one in the back seems to be chewing his cud. But these guys look in rather good condition, judging from... something drew their attention. Both of them checking up carefully. But also, having a look at them, I can see their skin seems quite smooth. Their bosses seems to gleam in the sunlight and reflecting quite a bit of sun. They've got a bit of tattered ears. It's only two. I'd say these two are probably two older bulls that's probably spending a bit of time in this area due to availability of food and water. Now these guys are usually very alert. They have to be. They're only two. They are a target to predators, large predators like lion. But they also have the physical strength and tenacity to back themselves up, which enables them to roam around on their own or in smaller groups like this around water in the dense areas. But these guys tend to like the good life. And they normally have their entourage of oxpeckers on them, as we can see them jumping around there between the two bulls. But what I find interesting is so that I would have probably spent a bit of the morning up until now feeding in the shadier patches, the longer, more nutritional grasses found in shade. Maybe they were laying down somewhere, resting after their night. They probably spent quite a bit of the night moving about. So now, while they approach water, they tend to do so slowly, enjoying some of the sunlight. Oh, looks like that one's busy grazing. So maybe they might not be going to the water at all. Maybe they've come from it. Although at least from where I am, there's no indication that they have been to the water. These guys are also grazers, living off grass. So you can see where they can, they'll find a good patch of grass in between, and they might stop and have a nibble. Look at that guy, perfectly hiding there. You know, these guys they've got such a notorious reputation in Africa, historically and still up until this day. They're like seen as a symbol of power and tenacity, and very much for the rightful reasons. I mean, these guys are powerful, they are extremely strong. Lion go through a lot of effort to bring down one of them. And they tend to like the denser areas. They tend to hide quite well. You can see the older they get, these guys, they like mud wallowing. They like covering themselves in dust. So they tend to, the greyish color that they have, usually the older they get, the more grey they appear, but they tend to be quite well camouflaged due to the hue of the soil in any area, and they tend to move in the thicker, greener patches. And before they come out into the open, or where they do find a shady spot like this in the middle of the day, they will find a spot, lay down, and there they'll settle. And this can make them quite hard to see. And they're also quite fond of their personal space, except for their companions, which they'll tolerate. They don't generally like anything else coming too close, including people walking on occasions. So you can see this one, I think he's found a spot where he might settle. It looks like he's got a bit of shade there, a bit of a breeze coming through, so that might help cooling him down. Ears flicking, tail flicking, so there's definitely some biting flies. So Jackie's asking, why are they so aggressive? Jackie, also not a straightforward answer, I believe. I guess there's a number of reasons, but look, when they're older like this and they don't have the support of the herd, they tend to be more reliant on their own physical strength and capability, and their one or two other companions' eyesight. So the chances of predation, especially by lion at this stage of their life, is much higher, and in some regions you find that quite a high percentage of the buffalo bulls above a certain age group that tend to form these bachelor herds, as we refer to them, they tend to die because of lion predation. And so generally they got a lot of reason to be a little bit more aggressive. The other thing is they also still have testosterone. Like, yes, the testosterone levels do go down at some stage, but they do tend to still have a build up. They don't necessarily move with the herd so often. Their stress releases are different. They have to live in a more, and in some cases at some points, in a more heightened stress situation. So they tend to be quite protective, and aggression is often the best way for animals to kind of make it clear that they don't want to be bothered. I think the other thing is also when they're older like this, their hearing and their eyesight aren't as great so much anymore. They have an excellent sense of smell, but if something tends to come close, it's almost easier to stumble across these guys, like hiding in a thick bush on a hot day, and of course that would be a situation any animal would like to avoid or not have. They would just minding their own business, and then something stumbles across their secluded or peaceful spot, and then of course they're going to be a little bit more more inclined to try and ward off whatever disturbance they've got. They're also not as fast. You can clearly look at that animal. You can see the fur on the back of the body and the side of the body have almost completely disappeared. It's mainly around the neck. So these are some nice older bulls in good condition. You can see the muscular build of this animal, extremely strong. It doesn't shout speed like some of the antelope or the slender bulk that, for instance, a topi or a tsessebe has. Their first inclination is generally, if it's at close proximity, is to stand their ground. They have the capabilities to do so. So that's why they've developed this reputation as aggression. But then aggression is also something that's generally only shown towards a threat or a potential threat. Katie's got a very interesting question. Do buffalo get poached like rhinos or elephants? Katie, I'm going to say yes and no to your answer. No, because maybe not to the same degree as a rhino or elephant. They don't necessarily have the same physical qualities or trophy elements that elephant and rhino have, like the rhino's horn and the elephant's ivory. That's getting used to the same extent. So generally speaking, maybe not at that level. They don't get poached as trophies so much. They do get poached in certain areas, and this would very much depend on the region. It depends on the type of poaching that's in an area. Like, it's a big animal, it's a lot of reward, like there's a lot of meat on it. Buffalo meat is quite sought after in certain regions, and I think what people often don't think about when they think about poaching is the fact that most animals actually get poached for meat throughout Africa, and where historically we used to refer to it as subsistence poaching. It's not so much that anymore. Like nowadays there's very much organized crime groups that poach for commercial meat use. I mean, meat is meat is very important in the diet of a lot of people that live in the surrounds near protected areas. They don't really have other means of getting meat. Historically, a lot of people used to hunt. Therefore, yes, in some areas they do get poached, but for meat, for commercial meat markets. Like some of the people have realized that some of the criminals that orchestrate poaching, they have realized that there's a market for buffalo meat. So they poach and they sell. They often poach with snares, and which is a very cruel way of poaching. So it often indiscriminately kills more animals than what actually gets used, which is the sad thing about poaching that way. But then we got another question from Lily asking, do buffaloes lose a lot of energy from ticks and other parasites, or does it not affect them too much? That is a very good question, Lee, and also not a straightforward answer. I guess with wildlife, most things aren't really a straightforward answer, which is part of why I like wildlife so much in the natural world. Everything is dependent on something else. But with buffaloes, in short, no. Well, they can actually, but in short, no. Generally, buffalo have come to adapt it, like most wild animals, to the skin parasites that's found generally within a certain area. They manage to do fine with them. It's just part of life, as many other things are, I guess. It does depend on the area, it does depend on the condition of the animal. Like ticks and skin parasites can certainly affect an animal that is already compromised due to some other reason, like an injury or so. In that case, yes, ticks can certainly affect them, and then a higher than usual tick load could definitely drain the energy, affect the animal, make it sick, and even potentially lead indirectly to its death. So yeah, so in that case it definitely can. But generally speaking, the average buffalo, at least up until a certain time and age, it's definitely capable of removing a lot of the parasite load, external parasite load, in natural processes like wallowing and dust bathing and scratching, and hence it doesn't affect them severely, and they don't seem to be bothered. And look at that guy. The one guy's found his spot he's laying. His friend is feeding around the edges of the nearby shrubs. Probably won't move off too far. Judging from their round shape, it looks like these guys are still in quite good shape. Oh, the guy is scratching an ear there on the bush. So for two old guys, they seem to be in their element here. Strategically placed, that one laying on the left. But I think we'll leave these two buffalo bulls here, and we're going to head over to Tembe, where we've got quite a few elephants. Aha. Standing around and sniffing about. I always get the sense of feeling that the elephants here, Timmy, when they come down here, they come and stand to try and see what's happening and see who else has come past. But interestingly enough, a lot of these elephants, look at that one standing in the shade under the tree. I'm sure they're just resting there while
Would you like to know the difference between a male and female wildebeest? You can ask me questions like this in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Hi there, my name is Kerry Dupree, wildlife presenter and guide. What I love the most about guiding is being able to share my love for wildlife and nature with my guests. Very exciting to find those cheetah boys on a kill. Being passionate about your job makes the world of a difference because your guide definitely sets the tone of every adventure.
Lose part of their trunk or injure their trunk. You can see now those elephants under the tree. This larger elephant has walked in, and now the younger ones are reluctantly moving away, but giving him his space. Clearly they've realized he needs more space, or maybe he was just being irritating and he had to just walk past the tree to the water. But that's a good spot, right in the shade of that tree, loose sand on the soil there. Good spot to scratch. Ooh, look at that, right behind the ear. So we have an interesting question from James, which I'll get to in a moment, but Lance asked, how often do elephants need to drink? Lance, that's also, it depends on the area and it depends on the particular elephants, but elephants, they have got very high water requirements, in some cases more than 200 liters a day, of which a lot of it often gets like splashed out on the ground. But generally speaking, if water is available, elephants will drink regularly, as much as they can. Otherwise, in areas where water is more scarce, they don't even drink every day. They are quite, if they're well adapted to deserts like some of the desert adapted elephants in northern Namibia, those elephants know quite well how to manage their water requirements, and they tend to not drink every day. They utilize their water quite sparingly, but when available, elephants will drink regularly and at least twice a day, sometimes more. But another question also on elephants by James, which is quite an interesting question, is elephants, James is saying that elephants in India differ from those in Africa. Indeed they do, James. They have different habitat requirements. They are separate species of elephants. In Africa we get 2 species of elephants. The African savanna elephant, which is the kind we're looking at here, Tembe. But although these ones at Tembe have kind of adapted to forest life, a particular type of forest life. And then you have full-blown forest elephants, which is found in the Central African jungles. And those elephants are different from the savanna elephants. And they are different from the Indian elephants. And the Indian elephants look different. They have different requirements. They have different adaptations. In some cases, well, females don't have tusks, males do. They tend to be slightly smaller than the larger African savanna elephants. In India you also have elephants that's been domesticated over many years. They have actually evolved separately from the wild Indian elephants and other Asian elephants. Asian elephants and Indian elephants have smaller ears. Apparently their ivory is harder than the African elephant's ivory, which is also interesting. But they tend to not spend so much time out in the open on the warm, harsh, warm plains of Africa. In India, although the climate might be similar in some areas, they tend to move in forests more. But there are also other animals that are different on other places than Africa. Crocodiles, of course, you get lots of different species all over. The larger animals, you get different rhinos. You get rhinos that's uniquely adapted. Some rhinos with only one horn in India, the Indian one-horned rhino. Their skins look different. They have different requirements than the African species. You also have buffalo in separate parts of the world, over different continents. And although all part of the bovine or the cow family, they tend to be adapted to different environments, different weather conditions, and therefore they look different and they behave differently. So there are quite a few animals. Kenny is asking, can a young elephant properly control its trunk when it's drinking, or do they learn that as they get older? Kenny, generally they do learn that as they get older. A trunk is a tool, and humans regard it as a tool, and elephants therefore are regarded as tool users. And yes, they do. They certainly do. They take a while. Generally you'll notice a young elephant that drinks mostly directly from the mammary glands from the mother, which is positioned between the front legs, and hence they use their mouth. The trunk kind of gets wrapped over it, and later on it certainly aids in the drinking process, but they drink directly with their mouth. They start eating plant material quite early on and learning what to eat in small amounts. And then they go through these different phases of learning their trunks. But generally speaking, it can take anything from 6 months to a year to learn properly how to use the trunk. I guess it probably takes even longer than that to learn every aspect of it. It's a very, very unique tool in the sense that it's very sensitive. It's extremely strong, but also capable of picking up the minutest little thing on the ground. It's their most important tool. It basically guides them throughout their day-to-day activities, including feeding. And you'll notice that young elephants, less than 6 months or sometimes less than 9 months, they tend to flap their trunk quite often, like kind of getting used to it and the feeling of it, and realizing all the little muscles and movements. I can imagine it must be quite an experience. I guess it's like humans learning how to hold things and write, which also takes a number of years. So they tend to take a while. Usually by around about a year to year and a half, they are capable of using their trunk to drink water properly. You'll notice with tiny baby elephants, if you see a herd going down to the water's edge, if the water's deep enough, you'll notice the little ones walking into the water and putting their whole face down into the water to try and gulp up some water that way. Look at that elephant there. That's exactly what we're talking about. Look at him grabbing that thin branch there. It was kind of just investigating, not really doing it for any particular reason, but it's amazing to see how that tip of that trunk, you can see it's almost like it's got two little appendages at the top and the bottom, the lip of the trunk, and it forms almost like two little fingers, like a little glove, a mitten. And it's very capable of picking up the minutest little thing. And at the same time, it's capable of incredible feats of strength. If I'm not mistaken, an elephant trunk, a large elephant, can pick up as much as 80 to 100 kilograms, which is a massive amount. I mean, they can push over trees with that. But from elephants in South Africa to a whole bunch of different animals, let's head over to Old Donyo for the first time this afternoon to see what's happening there. Oh wow. No, I did not expect that, to be honest. Some grumpy zebra getting a kick in the face, trying to bite. That's one way to get to spot around the watering hole. You can see over here, the pressure is on for a spot. There's a lot of zebra. Look at that old giraffe there in the background as well. An upset elephant. I would also get upset if I was that elephant. So many zebra. And as you can see, they're not playing nicely. Look at that guy. Maybe that was like quite a clear shoo from that elephant. Like, stay on your side. There you go. Look at that one zebra, busy drinking and kicking backwards. Like I said earlier. Oof, look at that. Yo. Zebras certainly do like their own space. They don't particularly like, even though they move in a group and they have their relations and their specific herd, their immediate personal space is regarded as something quite special. You can see, look at that zebra there in the middle, flattening the ears as the other one's approaching from the side. I think in this particular case, it looks like that chopper coming over is also maybe putting a little bit of nerves on the edge here, which is often the case, not in the sense of a chopper, but other things. In environmental factors play a huge role within animals' general behavior, especially around water. Water is a important part, of course, an important resource for any animals and vital to life. So coming down to the watering hole at a particular time of the day can be stressful, especially if you're not the only one. You can see even those elephants, they are affected by these zebras' presence, but this is a decent group of zebra. I'd say there's probably at least 30 to 40 zebra around here. Some with some interesting markings and things. Look at the zebra in front here. I've seen the zebra around the watering hole. Looks like an old, potentially snare wound that it had around the neck. That's nice to see, is once you start to recognize some of the individuals coming down. And it's also a time to fend for oneself, fend for your own right to drink. You can't be too lenient in giving up your space around the water. But what I've seen here at Aldonia is you find that the elephants sometimes they tend to hog the watering hole. But at the same time, it's also interesting to see that they do realize that the other animals need to come down, and they do give them their space to have their chance. So the zebra shouldn't be wasting it trying to kick each other and eventually kicking up a big amount of fuss without actually drinking. But yeah, nice to see how tolerant these elephants are of this herd, and it looks warm and hot here today. Now that one elephant's covered himself well in water and mud. Now he's probably gonna find a bit of dust and then might even move off to the shade in the distance. Look at these two zebras. Oof. It's interesting to note that they go try and get onto the shoulders of the other one and the neck, and then they bite. And look how agitated that zebra is at the others coming close. It's an animal that quite visibly relieve its stresses out on other members of the herd. And therefore they can be quite interesting to watch. Males also spar. There's always a bit of competition in the zebra herd. Lily's commenting, saying that the one zebra looked like it has blood in its nose, or could it just be dirt? I did not notice that, Lily. That's quite a keen observation there. I didn't see. It could be dust, certainly. It could be blood. Judging from all of those kicks flying around, I bet you if one of them gets a kick on the nose like that, that would probably be something that will give him a bloody nose, that's for sure. Jamie's asking, why could they be fighting? Oh, Jamie, I think that's probably just frustration of trying to get a chance at drinking. In that group, there might have been also a number of different groups there, maybe 2 or even 3 different harems coming down to drink, in which case, yeah, they'll be less tolerant of each other and their presence, so in that case they will try and kick and ensure that they don't get too close. The zebras are generally, they like their personal space. They tend to be quite protective of it when drinking or feeding. Now the one elephant's moved back into the center, kind of turning his back. And interesting to note how these zebras are taking this chance to drink with a bit more calmness, it seems like. Look at this elephant mudding itself. Just the vital spots. Another elephant scratching himself on the back end. Now, the elephants at Old Donyo, they are some of my favorite to watch. And there's a few very characteristically recognizable bulls. And due to that, quite fun to watch. But it looks very busy around Old Donyo here, like lots of animals nearby. Ooh, there's a younger zebra coming in. This should be interesting. Oh. Didn't even make it to the water's edge. Let's see, here comes another elephant. Maybe these elephants might push the zebra. Here we go. See, that's quite a gentle nudge. So, I know this is amazing, but I heard we might have a crossing about to happen at Fig Tree. So I think maybe what we should do is head over there and go see what's happening. Aha, here we go. A croc ready in the water and wildebeest eyeing it out. Well, I think that's a crocodile. But here we go. Very tense moment. And it all depends on that first wildebeest that might or might not take the plunge. What I do love about the wildebeest crossing is they tend to stand around and check, and the more experienced ones in front expertly scanning the water and determining which is the perfect spot to go. And then all chaos ensues when they eventually do tend to go. There's usually 1 or 2 young ones up there as well. In the heat of the moment, it's difficult to think about or remind oneself about all the thought that goes into these crossings and the nervousness that goes with it. These animals are extremely aware of the fact that this might be their last. James is saying a croc snack time. Let's see, James. Let's see. That would be something quite special to see, I think. I think it would be spectacular to see. Let's hope so. Well, or not, depending on which way one leans to. I think it's difficult. Like, one almost roots for the wildebeest, but then at the same time, the excitement of it in a big way is the crocs having their chance. But it could go anyway, and it always does. And there's a lot of back and forth from these wildebeest coming to the water's edge, checking it out. And often it's not even the crocs that make them take the decision not to. Maybe it's just a reaction of the rest of the herd. Like, they tend to... One thing about large numbers, of course, is the fact that they psych each other up, and the safety in numbers, and all the numbers help. Look at that crocodile, that's quite interesting. The croc's moved away out of that stream. He looked like he's kind of... Oh wow, I did not expect that. I was like, that's a funny looking wildebeest. That is quite spectacular. It's almost like a... Look, if these wildebeest, this is the chance if ever they had any. That hippo just gave them a big break. They throw them a bone. It's quite deep there, actually, much deeper than I thought. But clearly we can see that hippo, maybe that hippo's presence there had the desired effect of moving the croc off. Although a croc could be back in a moment's notice, and I think the wildebeest knows that, but that was quite... If I was one of those grey looking dusty wildebeest there in the front part of the group, I would have probably taken my chance there. It was as good a chance as ever. And the herons come in to watch the action. So we'll see.
Can you hear that sound? The way it grows, the way it calls you to come alive. Can you feel the rhythm? The way it beats with the land? Do you feel alive again? Or maybe you never left. You don't just visit the wild, you return to it.
Hello, my name is Eric Barnard, a Wild Earth presenter and private guide. My favorite animal is an elephant. When they get close to the vehicle, there's always some form of conversation. Good evening. How do you do? I think the most important one is the vibe. If there's a good vibe, everyone's having fun. Look at them, look at them. I think those are aspects that really do make a great safari.
On Drive with me today, I have a new presenter. This is Ridley. Say hello, Ridley.
Or the last time we checked, I had counted about 10 crocs. I'm not going to end the safari without visiting the Mara River.
We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Traveller. He's missing part of his right horn. Let's see what's happening here. There's the presence of the croc still there. The crocodile still there, just off to the side. That wildebeest very valiantly went for a quick sip. Now what we're also not seeing is the pressure that builds from the back. Like there's a lot of other animals up on the bank. And gradually it starts to overflow into these ones at the beginning, and then that sometimes do push them to hop through and across. But let's see. It's funny, one thing about this migration, I guess it's one of the spectacular natural events in the world, but it is also something that is such a nice way of illustrating that contrast within a natural space. That contrast is so interesting to witness or be witness to. It's like the calmness or the seeming calmness of these animals now before the chaos that ensues. The contrast between the dry and the not so dry river. And then of course of these moments of silence and then complete chaos. But let's see, there is a lot of standing around often with crossings, and then nothing happens. Whether they will or will not cross, that I do not know. They're not seeming to be paying attention to where the croc was. Lance is asking, would the hippos ever protect them from the crocs when crossing? Well, Lance, I don't think it's an active protection from the hippos. I think it's more like an ad hoc effect or a emerging effect that happens if hippos tend to be in the area. The hippos tend to react quite severely to stress and pressure from other animals in a spot. I mean, often these crossings are at certain spots where it's just generally good spots for hippos to be as well. Like deeper pools with gradual banks, more comfortable spots from that point of view. And of course that means that when these animals cross, like that's like quite a bit of an upheaval for the hippo in the area, which of course raises their stress levels a little bit, and like hippos sometimes have a bit of an emotional response to that, and they tend to sometimes do take it out on crocodiles if they're nearby, or predators in general are often reacted against by other animals. So sometimes they'll drive the crocs out of the area a little bit, but it's not an active protection for the wildebeest. Now, what I don't know here for sure is whether these wildebeest have now decided to eye a different crossing spot, if they're checking actively for crocodiles there, or if they have decided to slowly but surely moving back and not going to take the leap of faith. You can see they're all steering in a different direction now, and ever since this hippo's gotten into the water, you can imagine the process of decision making within a big herd of animals like this, or even a smaller group. Like, there's a lot of bodies there. Who's going to determine when to go and where to go? Generally they'll follow. There'll be one or two that makes a decision, but it's not a quick process. It's not an easy process. A lot of things to consider. Jerry's asking, do cheetahs ever sit and ambush them? Jerry, indeed, in some of the areas cheetahs do. Look, a wildebeest is quite a large prey species for cheetah to take, but I know in the plains of East Africa you have cheetah coalitions, sometimes 3, 2 or 3, and if that is the case, cheetahs the males do tend to team up, and then they do tend to take larger prey like this, aided by the animal's exhaustion. But a wildebeest can be a formidable foe for cheetahs. But yes, cheetahs do use ambush to an extent as well, even though they are very quick and they do tend to run their animals down. Cheetahs they do also use the element of surprise and ambush, especially to cover the distance. Let's see. Looks like a wise old wildebeest. And as good a time as any to chew a ball of cud there, or literally ruminating about whether or not to cross. There's a few coming in with a bit of more determination now. Let's see. Ooh. A lot of up and downing. A lot of behavior associated with uncertainty. There's an old wildebeest there. It looks like he's got no horns left. Let's see. You can see the heads are up, there's some sniffing the air. All staring in different directions. Seems to be a few coming down from the bank. So this does have every potential for some of them going for it. Often a bit of pressure from the back is not a bad thing to get things going. So let's have a look. Will we have an attempt to cross this afternoon? That would be amazing. almost like a game of open the gate. You can see some of them are spread, or they're trying to spread out to get a better view. The heron doesn't seem too bothered. I guess for the heron it's just another day on the Mara River with a few thousand wildebeest it might cross. Now of course those rocks, they do provide good spots for crocodiles to lay in wait. There's a lot of looking around now. It's interesting how there's these almost like a bit of momentum building up, and then they get to this point where they all stand, and then hesitation takes over, and then you can almost feel it move from the one in front through the rest of them. You can almost feel it moving all the way up the bank. We got a few minutes to go, and it would be a very, very nice surprise if they do tend to go, but if they don't, honestly I don't blame them. I mean, I wouldn't really take my chances with any of those big crocodiles in the Mara River. Penelope Kenyon, good to see that you joined this afternoon, and yeah, it was great to have you. Very happy that you could join. Well, this afternoon has been great. It's gone very, very quickly. I can't believe we've reached the end of the afternoon. It's been busy around the watering hole. It looks like it's been nice warm days and throughout the watering holes we visited this afternoon. We got some great characters around it, as always. The elephants. I like the 2 buffalo bulls that showed up this afternoon. Some good birds. And of course the wildebeest. Also great characters. But yeah, what a great afternoon. What a way to end it. Like a nice... Oh, there's a bird that just gave them a fright. But what a interesting scenario to witness. And even though we haven't seen them crossing, we can see that there's a lot of tension and a lot of anticipation that goes into this. But I think from all of us here at Live at the Watering Hole, I hope you can join us again tomorrow. But from myself and everybody at Wild Earth, we bid you a good farewell, and we hope you have a wonderful Saturday and a beautiful afternoon.